Good morning, guys. Welcome to week 2 of our online class. Today, we're going to be going through chapter 7. And also this week, I'm going to be doing a couple different things just to kind of mix it up a little bit. There is going to be some opportunity for you guys to answer questions and ask and answer questions in sort of a live format. So I'll ask you if you have specific questions about any of the chapters or anything in particular that you type them at the bottom in the comment section, and then I can reply to those kind of point by point if you have those, just so everyone can kind of see. Another opportunity, I guess, is for if you'd like to become a Riverside Christian Facebook star. Mrs. Bradford and some of the others in the office have asked just to kind of boost morale if you would be willing to have any of your Flipgrid videos posted on the Facebook page. They are asking for student volunteers to do that just so they can show what is being done here during this time as far as online learning. So I'll put that opportunity out there. Just send me an email if that's something you're willing to have me do. Otherwise, I won't obviously volunteer your information. And another thing is some of you, like I get a lot of questions, kind of more personal in class, but it's not really the right context or setting to share bits and pieces of that with you. So I'm going to try to show you some things just so that you realize I am a person and I have a life. So for instance, at the moment, I'm trying to record and I'm in my living room, but across from me, I have the little person on the couch who is wanting my attention, but I've got work to do. And then over here, the cat is sleeping, which I'm not a big fan of animals, but he's not terrible. But we're going to try to get this done in the home context. So just so you know, I have, like, this is not an ideal situation for me too, but I just want to provide the opportunity for you guys to continue learning and to really enjoy some of these books because they are worth reading. And so I want to point out some of the fun elements of that and just try to engage you along the way. So with that said, let's jump in. Today we're going to be looking at chapter 7 in the text. And what I really want to highlight through this chapter, and there's so many things we could look at. We could continue to look at materialism. We continue to look at the class divisions and the class systems. But I want to highlight Gatsby and Daisy's relationship and the way that it's becoming more overt and prominent in order to talk about the cultural class divide that is taking place, and then kind of the shirking of morality that we see happening as well, and kind of why do people feel entitled to do that sort of thing. So let's go ahead and get started. Gatsby's parties end at the beginning of chapter 7. His whole purpose for having the parties, we realize, is to get Daisy to the parties, and she came, she didn't like it, and he ends them instantly. He dismisses all of his servants, and he hires some of Wolfsheim's sketchy characters. They're some Russian I don't know exactly, fugitives, I suppose is what they are. It doesn't exactly say, but when asked by Nick, why did you fire them? And he says, well, I'm doing Wolfram a favor, and they don't know anything about being a servant, but he didn't want them to talk because he and Daisy are seeing each other every afternoon now. And so there's an instance where this takes place. They're at Tom and Daisy's house, and Gatsby and Nick arrive at the house, and Daisy and Jordan are laying on the couch. It's really hot. They're kind of miserable. And Daisy says to Tom, like, go out of the room, please, and go get us drinks. Make us some cold drinks. As he left the room again, she got up and went over to Gatsby, and she pulled his face down and kissed him on the mouth. You know I love you, she murmured. You forget there's a lady present, said Jordan, and Daisy looked around doubtfully. Will you kiss Nick, too? What a low, vulgar girl. I don't care, said Daisy, and she began to clog on the brick fireplace. So her daughter comes in, and she basically dismisses her, like, oh, look at you, you're so pretty. I wanted to dress you up and show you to all of my friends. Now go away. And then they decide they're going to go into town. So she doesn't have a relationship with her daughter. She doesn't have a relationship with her husband. She's being openly kind of vulgar and parading her affair in front of her husband, they decide that they're going to go um, into the city. So Tom comes back in the room, and Daisy says, "What'll we do with ourselves this afternoon? And the day after that? And for the next 30 years?" "Don't be morbid," Jordan said. "Life starts all over again when it gets crisp in the fall." That's something that's cited as a really important verse from this text. Verse, oh my goodness. A quote from this text. Because when she says that, it's sort of like it shows that they have the luxury. It's sort of like, remember how we talked about Tom peaked when he was 21, and now they have the rest of their lives in front of them and they have nothing to do. They have no purpose, no objective. They don't have goals. It's sort of just like, what are we going to do with ourselves this afternoon and for the rest of our lives? And it shows the meaninglessness, the worthlessness of wealth that really just begs them to do things for entertainment. I mean, we can all kind of, in some respects, relate to this right now because we're all stuck at home or there's not a lot to go out and do. And so for a lot of people, life has kind of stopped and they're like, what are we going to do? Where are we going to go? And I think the author, Will Fitzgerald, is making the contrast between the wealthy and the poor here, saying the poor do not have the luxury of that question. And it begs the question, which one's better? Is it better to have your entire life funded and paid for and you have no purpose and all you have to do is luxuriate? Some people talk about, oh, I just can't wait till I have enough money. I wouldn't work. I would have this. I would have that. What if the fun of material possessions wears off? What if the fun of even affairs wears off? What if all of the mortal finite pleasures are satisfied? What are you left with? And I think he's saying that there's something inherent about work and hard work and that bootstraps narrative of becoming something that gives a life meaning and purpose, and without it, it does seem morbid and depressing and miserable. And that's where we find our characters right now. And so, as they move ahead, Daisy says, "Who wants to go to town?" Gatsby's eyes floated toward her. "Ah," she cried, "you look so cool." Their eyes met, and they stared together at each other alone in space. With an effort, she glanced down at the table. "You always look so cool," she repeated. She had told him that she loved him, and Tom Buchanan saw. He was astounded. His mouth opened a little, and he looked at Gatsby, and then back at Daisy as if he had just recognized her as someone he knew long ago. "You resemble the advertisement of the man," she went on innocently. "You know the advertisement of the man?" "All right," broke in Tom. "I'm perfectly willing to go to town. Come on. We're all going to town." He got up, and his eyes were still flashing between Gatsby and his wife, and no one moved. "Come on." His temper cracked a little. "What's the matter anyhow? If we're going to go to town, let's start." His hand was trembling with his effort at self-control, bore to his lips the last of his glass of ale, and Daisy's voice got us to our feet. They went outside, and Tom finagles to take Gatsby's car, and Gatsby says, "Well, I don't want you taking my car. I don't have any gas." And then Tom says, "Oh, yes, you do. Come on, let's go." And he goes over to the car. "Come on, Daisy," pressing her with his hand. "I'll take you in this circus wagon." He opened the door, but she moved out from the circle of his arm. "You take Nick and Jordan. We'll follow you in the coupe." She walked closely to Gatsby, touching his coat with her hand. Jordan and Tom and I got into the front seat of Gatsby's car, and Tom pushed the gears tentatively, and we shot off in the heat, leaving them out of sight and behind. "Did you see that?" demanded Tom. "See what?" He looked at me keenly, realizing that Jordan and I must have known all along. "You think I'm pretty dumb, don't you?" he suggested. "Well, perhaps I am, but I have almost a second sight sometimes that tells me what to do. Maybe you don't believe that, but science—" He paused. The immediate contingency took over him and pulled him back from the edge of the theoretical abyss. "I've made a small investigation of this fellow," he continued. I could have gone deeper if I'd known." "What do you mean? You've been to a medium?" inquired Jordan humorously. "What?" He stared as we laughed. "About Gatsby. I've been making a small investigation of his past. An Oxford man." He was incredulous. "Like heck he is. He wears a pink suit." "Nevertheless, he's an Oxford man. Oxford, New Mexico." snorted Tom, or something like that. Listen, Tom, if you're such a snob, why did you invite him to lunch? Demanded Jordan crossly. Daisy invited him. She knew him before we were married. God knows where. We were all irritable now with the fading ale, and aware of it, we drove for a while in silence. We've got enough to get us into town. But there's a garage right there, objected Jordan. I don't want to get stalked in this barking heat. Tom threw on both brakes impatiently, and we slid to an abrupt, dusty stop under Wilson's sign, and after a moment the proprietor emerged from the interior. Let's have some gas, Tom said roughly. What do you think we stopped for, to admire the view? I'm sick, said Wilson without moving. I've been sick all day. What's the matter? Well, I'm all run down. Well, shall I help myself? Tom demanded. You sounded well enough on the phone. With an effort, Wilson left the shade in support of the doorway and unscrewed the cap of the tank, and in the sunlight his face was green. I didn't mean to interrupt your lunch, but I need money pretty bad, and I was wondering what you were going to do with your old car. How do you like this one? Inquired Tom. I bought it last week. It's a nice yellow one, said Wilson as he strained at the handle. Would you like to buy it? Big chance, Wilson said faintly. No, but I could make some money on the other. What do you want money for all of a sudden? Been here too long. I want to get away. My wife and I want to go west. Your wife does? Exclaimed Tom, startled. So Tom just found out that Daisy is having an affair. He also found out, just now, that Wilson is planning to move Myrtle out west. She's been talking about it for 10 years. He rested now for a moment against the pump, and now she's going whether she wants to or not, because I'm going to get her away. The coupe flashed by us in a flurry of dust and the flash of a waving hand. What do I owe you? Asked Tom harshly. I just got wised up to something funny the last 2 days, remarked Wilson. That's why I want to get away. That's why I've been bothering you about the car. What do I owe you? $1.20. The relentless beating heat was beginning to confuse me. I had a bad moment before I realized that so far his suspicions had not alighted on Tom. He discovered that Myrtle had some sort of a life apart from him in another world, and the shock had made him physically sick. I stared at him, and then at Tom, who had made a parallel discovery less than an hour before, and it occurred to me there was no difference between men. An intelligence array so profound as the difference between the sick and the well. Wilson was so sick that he looked guilty, unforgivably guilty, as if he had just got some poor girl with child. I'll let you have the car, said Tom. I'll send it over tomorrow. In one of the windows of the garage, the curtains had moved aside, and Myrtle Wilson was peering at the car. So engrossed was she that she had no consciousness of being observed, and one emotion after another crept into her face. Her expression was curiously familiar. I'd seen it before on women's faces, but on Myrtle it seemed purposeless and inexplicable until I realized that her eyes, with jealous terror, were fixed not on Tom, but on Jordan Baker, whom she took to be his wife. There's no confusion like that of a simple mind, and as we drove away Tom was feeling the hot whips of panic. His wife and his mistress, until an hour ago secure and inviolate, were slipping precipitously from his control. Instinct made him step on the accelerator with the double purpose of overtaking Daisy and leaving Wilson behind, and we sped along toward Astoria at 50 miles an hour. So Tom's life has just been ruptured. Myrtle's life has just been turned upside down, thinking that Tom was now back with his wife because she thought that he was going to leave Daisy for her. Daisy is in La La Land with Gatsby, and Nick and Jordan are just watching everybody's lives fall apart. He also notices that Tom and Wilson, though distances apart because of the social gap, are in the exact same situation. And he says there's a similarity among men that we all find ourselves in, regardless of money, that we're all human, and then we all experience the same type of emotions. And so, again, it just shows the futility of prejudice because of the similarities that human nature kind of puts upon us as human beings. So in this chapter, we see irony, fear, cynicism, and just kind of the uselessness. When you don't have a purpose in life, you start causing trouble or seeking drama in order to bring some type of interest and engagement. And if you don't believe that, look at a high school campus. Drama comes when people get bored. So don't do that.